Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Chandra and I make videos about reading, writing, and all things books. Today's video is book recommendations for writers who are writing trauma. I want to start off by saying these recommendations are simply to expand your knowledge and understanding of trauma and mental illness, as I believe it is important to write about these subjects with sensitivity and accuracy. It is important to remember that some of these are general information intended to introduce certain topics and ideas. In the case of biographies, these are the experiences of the individual and are not representative of everyone who has the same or similar diagnosis. Whatever. Not everyone experiences their illness or trauma in the same way. Also note that research is not a substitute for sensitivity readers, and a sensitivity reader is not a substitute for research. Sensitivity readers should be paid. The first book that I want to recommend is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This one was really interesting because it talks about the ways that trauma can come up in the behaviors that accompany it being very strange. I will say this book has a lot of trigger warnings. I did write a review about it, so if you're interested in the review, I will link that below from Goodreads. The biggest thing about this book, it does get into some pretty disturbing subject matter, which I address in my review, so you can definitely check that out. And there's part of the review that has trigger warnings associated with it, and I tried to really delineate that clearly, so it may not be for everyone. But if you are looking to understand trauma in general and figure out what kinds of trauma your character may be functioning with and what are some types of experiences that you might expect to see from someone with those kinds of trauma, this book covers a lot very broadly. It has some things in detail, more so on the ideas around treatment. So you wouldn't necessarily be reading it for those aspects, but to get some general diagnoses and stories, I would recommend that book. But you would definitely need to do more specific reading based off of the determination you make for your specific characters. Number 2, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sing by Angelou. I feel like everyone should read this book regardless, but as far as a personal story of trauma, especially childhood trauma, I think it's just a solid place to start. It's also, could y'all play nice? The cat looked at her and, you're fine. You can go lie down. Yeah, you can. No, you can't sit in my lap right now. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, where was I? Yes, read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. It also gets into a lot of American civil rights issues and those kinds of experiences. It's all around a good book, but again, trigger warnings. I still think it's worth a read. Number 3, It Didn't Start With You by Wolynn. I think this book is helpful in the way it addresses trauma, but also reactions to things that people might have that are in their family lineage and why. And I think that's something, an interesting idea to play around with when characterizing a character, maybe not all of the experiences that they're reacting to or things that happen to them specifically, but things that are in their family trauma and things of that nature. It does a great job of explaining that, but not just how that impacts an individual, but how it impacts people groups and families. Number 4, The Makings of a Serial Killer by Danny Rolling. This is a book about a serial killer, written by the serial killer. So that may not be everyone's cup of tea. I will say it is very, very graphic. Like, all the trigger warnings. If you don't regularly listen to true crime podcasts and read books about true crime and watch true crime documentaries and things about serial killers, I would not recommend this book. If that's something that you already do, I will say I am one of those people. I already do all of those things. This book was very disturbing. I would read it again. I would still recommend it, but I think if you're going to read it, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. And don't feel bad if you have to put it down. It's shocking. It is shocking. But if you're looking to understand this subject, if you're wanting to write something in the thriller genre, something true crime related, inspired by, then I would definitely recommend this. There's also a Netflix series that I meant to pull this up in my notes. I'm gonna go ahead and do that now because it's very much related, and I'll just add that in. So the name of the documentary is Crazy Not Insane, and it is on HBO. I definitely recommend that as well. It goes along the same lines, but I also think it really reinforces a lot of the points from the making of a serial killer. And it provides, so you get to see the view from the serial killer, and then you also get to see the view from a psychologist who specializes in and has interviewed many people who are serial killers. And I think it gives a lot of perspective and a lot more depth and understanding. The fifth book that I would recommend is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It gives a great background for someone who has a diverse background, and a lot of clarity around childhood experiences. I know for me personally, coming from a diverse background, parents and families from different countries, it was very meaningful to me, and I could relate to some of the experiences there, and I think it'd be very helpful from that perspective. And there's a bit of trauma there in this. I mean, you just got to read the book. It's definitely meaningful in regards to those things, but I also felt like it did a good job of conveying the perspective of a child growing up into an adult. Dobby, no. Number 6, Certain Woman of an Age by Margaret Trudeau. This one I thought was great as far as addressing mental illness in the public eye, in public life. I thought it was really helpful for that, and talks a lot about the patient perspective, the medication side, what treatments were before now. I mean, it's not that long ago, but it just shows the progression of what was available as far as treatment and understanding versus where we are now. And I think it's really helpful for that perspective, but also if you're writing anything that isn't in the immediate present, then I think it's a great way to get a little bit more perspective, especially for a woman dealing with these issues, and having the public perspective be limited intentionally and painting things in a very different light. So I think that one is very helpful. For writers who are writing trauma and mental illness, if you have any other recommendations, please leave those in the comments. I would love to see those, and I'm always looking for more books to read. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.